OK, well, on to our top story this morning, and all eyes on the government once again. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak having seen off his difficult Rwanda bill, but now all eyes on the economy. Later on, the Bank of England will be holding their final rate-setting meeting for the year, and interest rates, of course, are there to try and combat inflation. The Chancellor suggested this is to blame for what he called subdued GDP, and he called it inevitable. So let's speak, shall we, this morning to Dr. Roger Gewolb. He's a broadcaster and former government advisor with his thoughts about all of this. You're not a big fan of what you term the Bailey-ocerus, the Bank of England governor. Is he going to make a good call today, do you think, or indeed his team?
I think he'll probably follow the Federal Reserve, the Central Bank of the United States, as he usually does, rather slavishly. And yesterday they decided to leave rates unchanged. So my bet would be that he'll probably do the same.
And what's your view on that? Is that the right course of action, given, what we heard yesterday, that the economy has contracted in October? And again, that was being blamed on wet weather, I believe. But, certain party members would say probably that's to do with their policy, that there's not enough growth being encouraged and, we need to cut taxes.
Well, I mean, there is absolutely wet weather and a torrential storm inside the Old Lady of Threadneedle Street, but I think that's more the cause than the actual weather. I think it's better than raising rates, which I certainly hope he doesn't do. But I've been advocating since he first started to raise rates 14 rises ago that raising interest rates is the wrong thing to do. Both historically and currently, with the kind of inflation we have. We have non-consumer inflation. People are not overspending. They're buying food, energy, and other essentials. You can't stop them doing that by making money more expensive. All you do is make running businesses more expensive. So they pass that on to the consumers, which fuels the inflation. And whereas this kind of inflation always drops by itself, it prolongs in this case, because of these interest rate rises, the period that it lasts, and it's really damaged huge swathes of the British economy.
If you read this morning, you get a kind of different take on the outlook for the next year. I mean, yesterday I was reading that mortgages are falling ahead of the decision, lots of expectation that rates are going to come down faster next year than perhaps anticipated. Then the Eye has warnings for the Prime Minister this morning that tax cuts will actually keep interest rates high because they're inflationary. So can you cut through all of this and tell us what we as consumers, we as taxpayers can expect and what we should really be wanting to see?
Yeah, excellent question, Isabel. First of all, mortgage rates are falling because the mortgage market has been so damaged. I mean, people are paying 20%, I believe, of mortgage holders are paying more than £1,000 a month, £1,000 a month more on their mortgages. It's swinging. Now, some people say, "Oh, come on, 5.25%, Dr. Roger, that's not so high. I can remember back in the 80s when rates were 14%. Well, to them, I would say, read the reports by Leeds Building Society and others showing that with the difference in fundamentals and factors between then and now, a 6% mortgage today is actually equivalent to a 26% mortgage in 1980. So we're in a period of very expensive money. It's hit the property market, and the reason mortgage rates are falling is because the mortgage lenders said, we better drop these and get some business going here. It's nothing to do with us, nothing to do with what Bailey is doing. Their business has been hit. How the tax cuts will affect us, well, we haven't had tax cuts. It's all stealth tax. It's all smoke and mirrors. Mr. Hunt and Mr. Sunak have created an environment where you can still make a small fortune in Britain, just come here with a large one. I mean, we are taxed at a higher rate than we have been in 70 years. So the tax cuts that the Eye is writing about and Jeremy Hunt is talking about are all smoke and mirrors. If they cut the tax by actually doing something sensible, which they should have done in the autumn statement, raising the threshold so that people aren't fiscally dragged, as they say, into higher and higher taxes, that would be good. And it certainly would not cause inflation. It would take this government's foot off our throat.
And that would have, I suppose, you could argue, the result of making the politicians more popular. I was looking at the YouGov polling yesterday, and Rishi Sunak's currently as unpopular as Boris Johnson was when he resigned. His popularity is at its lowest point ever. 70% of people have an unfavourable view of him, and his percentage of favourability is now minus 49, and it's dropped 10 points in the last few weeks. So do you think of people like nurses and teachers, people who we don't think of as earning huge wages, would really actually vote Conservative at the next election if they weren't then having to pay the top-rated tax?
It's just unbelievable in the amount of people tell me that I'm credited with inventing the hashtag Tory gaslighting. I mean, I can't believe that they actually think we believe all the guff they're saying. Yesterday in PMQ, in Prime Minister's questions, Rishi actually stated, go back and watch the video of it. He said, quote, "The economy is growing," unquote. No qualification. On the same day that his Office for National Statistics said it had shrunk by 0.3%. I mean, that's, as you have said previously, that's just flatlining perhaps, but flatlining is not growing. We're not growing. They tell us the economy is growing, we're doing great, and they've cut taxes. It's all absolute nonsense. And yeah, I don't think people believe it anymore.
Okay, well, listen, Dr. Roger, we believe you. Good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much indeed. We'd love to hear at home what people want to see, whether they want to see those rates come down, whether they want to see those tax cuts, and what they think the government is doing, whether they are on the right track this morning. GBViews at gbnews.com.
In the United States,